And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the Lakers Lounge podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin of LakersDaily.com. I am joined by Harrison Fagan of SBNation.com. Just a couple .comers here talking about sports, just like NBA players prefer. Harrison, we just watched the Lakers again have some extremely uninspiring garbage time play. A game that at one point was a 20-point. Well, the thing is, though, I think it started before the garbage time play, right? Like it was just kind of like they had they had a 20-point lead. It got all the way down to like 3. Then they built it back up, and then they, the last play that they had before the end of the bench came in was a 24-second shot clock violation, as if the game was ending.
Yes.
We'll talk about all of this here in a bit, but I want to start here because you do a very good job of reminding me to stay positive.
Yes.
The Lakers just had a 5-1 road trip.
Yeah, I was looking up the schedule as you were talking to confirm that is what it was, because I was like, wait, was it 5-1 or 4-1? But yeah, it was a 6-gamer. So 5-1 road trip. They get the win ultimately at the end of the season. That's all that matters. I understand that your fans probably don't want to come on here and it's like, 5-1, we're rolling. We don't want to hear about, the flaws with this team or whatever. And I feel like normally I'm a pretty good arbiter for you of, Anthony, you got to be a little more positive. Things are going well. You got to calm down and you can't just nitpick everything. But I'm about to nitpick some stuff. I'm sorry. I don't know. Was there any other intro things that you needed to get out of the way before I start cooking?
Please do hit that subscribe button for those of you who are tuned in live here on YouTube. If you're watching live on Twitter, that's perfectly fine as well. Those comments come in just the same, but it does help the show if you do head on over to youtube.com/@LakersLounge is where you can find the show. If you guys are listening to us in the morning via podcast, please do hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, preferably on Odyssey, and tell a friend. Tell a friend that, I, Anthony Irwin, am the positive one on this episode. That never happens. And I'm joined by Harrison Fagan, Debbie Downer. That also doesn't tend to happen very often. We are a versatile group is what I am saying to you. All right, go ahead, Harrison. I'm out of your way.
No, we're like one of those pre-debate shows or whatever where we're just picking which side we come down on an issue.
How dare you?
And it's like
Stephen A. Smith and Skip Bayless say they 100% believe everything they say, even though there is.
They probably do, but it's like you try to find the topics that two people are going to argue about.
Yeah.
If they agree, you're probably not going to have them debate that topic. That's why it's a debate show. It would be weird if they did an episode of First Take and it was just like them going like, "Yeah, I think you made a good point."
I wonder what
after
that would
every
do.
Single thing. Be a shorter
I wonder how
show.
that would go. It would just be a podcast, right? It would just be.
Can you imagine somebody comes on and Stephen A. Smith is like, you know what? I agree with everything you just said.
I think on serious topics they'll do that, but if it's Caitlin Clark's legacy, I think they'll bring somebody on. They'll bring Jay Williams on to say she actually isn't that good because she hasn't won a championship yet. Yeah, the Lakers beat the Washington Wizards. The final score here, the Lakers 125 to Washington's 120. I was watching this game with my dad, and I told him about the bet that I placed about this game.
I saw you tell Avery tomorrow's donut day, so I assume you did bet on the Lakers this time.
I did bet on the Lakers, so these donuts are going to come out of my pocket. I'm going to send an invoice to Maxwell Lewis, but yeah, I told the dad the bets that I made and the reasoning behind them. I thought that the Lakers were going to cover and that the game was going to go over. The over was 236, and I was like, that's still way low. I just had a good feeling that this game was going to be high scoring. Washington plays no defense. The Lakers play no defense. But as soon as garbage time started and the Lakers were up by the amount that they needed to cover, I was like, no, I lost this one. He's like, no, you're winning. And no, this is over. Very first play, a bad shot leads to a Wizards 3 and then another Wizards 3. And I'm like, yep, this is over. And I I actually think that this is an actually pretty good spot to start, Harrison, because I think this is a cultural thing. Like, I think, like, when they called that timeout, when Washington called that timeout, and the guys from the end of the bench who were on the court were walking off of the court, I watched Darvin Ham on purpose just to see how he would handle that, right? I wanted to see what he would do there in yet another spot where the end of the bench comes in and does offensive stuff. And, in this case, forces the starters to come back into the game. They were given a 14-point lead with 2 minutes to go, and LeBron, AD, Rui, and Reaves all had to come back into the game. And I
believe Gabe Vincent stayed out there. I don't think it was all the starters. I know LeBron and AD came back.
D'Lo stayed off the court because it was a defensive possession that they were coming in for. But yeah, I think this is a cultural problem because I was watching Darvin Ham specifically. I was like, all right, what's he going to do here? How's he going to handle this? Because historically, the coaches that I'm used to watching, whether it's coaches that I played for or coaches that, successful professional coaches that I root for, when that happens and the bench is walking over there, they make it known, you idiots. Like, what the hell just happened?
Like throw a chair at them or something. Normally, I wouldn't encourage that sort of behavior, but in this one case,
this,
or at least throw a chair. You don't have to throw it at Maxwell Lewis, but like I want to see Darvin like smash a chair on the ground.
But the only person who I saw upset about how that went down was Spencer Dinwiddie, who was actually on the court, and he was angry at Maxwell Lewis. He's like, "What are you doing?" And I guess Anthony Davis had a quote after the game in his walk-off interview with Mike Trudell about those guys at the end of the bench and how they need to learn how to be professional basketball players. 100% agree, except they've been in this program now for going on 80 games. You would think you've learned something to this point, but they have been like, they are really, really, really bad and consistently really, really, really bad in those garbage time moments. And it's like, at some point, the head coach has to light a fire under their asses and say, like, that isn't good enough. That can't represent us out there on the court.
Yeah. Anthony, it's funny. Our friend, coach stepdad Pete, has been sort of all over this all year. And it's been ever since I noticed him annoyed about it, I've started watching for it at the end of blowouts. Like, it's not just this game, this end of bench group. And again, I can hear some of your listeners being like, why does this matter? Whatever. Like, it probably doesn't. This was an embarrassingly sort of unserious finish from the entire team, and really an embarrassingly unserious game from the entire team. But I get it. They're on the second night of a back-to-back. I know you're not going to get like full mental locked in, whatever, for the Wizards on the second night of a back-to-back after you just played a ton of minutes. Like, I was not expecting them to be like, oh, we're going to come out and blow out the Wizards tonight. That wouldn't be a reasonable expectation. Kyle Kuzma was playing like this was his Super Bowl. Jordan Poole decided to play like serious basketball, at least on offense again.
Against the Lakers. Yeah.
Corey Kispert was like, I don't know. He just, I guess, was like auditioning for the Lakers. I don't know what he was up to, but like, they had some guys play well, but it was across the board. It was the entire game. And it's stuff like this. It was just an annoying game to watch, even though they won, because it's like, the Wizards are starting Tristan Vukcevic. I believe that's how that's pronounced at center.
I think, Billy was saying Vukcevic.
Okay. Well, either way, you and I did a whole riff last week on the show about the Lakers' most annoying tendency is that they forget Anthony Davis is good at basketball, despite like they have the object permanence of your son Miles with Anthony Davis's scoring, and anyone else. They are like, oh, this guy's cooking, we're going to keep getting him the ball. It's like when AD is cooking, they're like, well, dunks are kind of boring. Like, don't we want to shoot some threes? Let's get Rui's corner jumper established,
Or even worse, would be like, hey, AD, do you want to shoot a three? Not like, do you want to go out
the fourth quarter tonight where they had AD go space to the corner? It's like, guys, he has dunked the ball every time you give him the ball within 5 feet of the hoop tonight.
Yeah, he had 17 points in the first quarter. He finished with 35. And 35,
those
18.
came in the fourth. I would be
Yeah.
shocked if he scored more than 4 points in the second and third quarters. And it's not, some of that is on AD, obviously. You got to come get the ball. Like certain stars, they're going to go demand the ball. We've seen that is not AD's personality style. Like you have to keep running these actions and trying to get him the ball in space. It's like every single time they did it tonight, something good happened. He got fouled. He scored like he dunked. He got a layup, whatever. And then the Lakers, they just go away from it for a while. And then down the stretch, there were 2 minutes left. They were up 14. I've never seen a team just take a shot clock violation in that situation. Like that's not mental fatigue. That's just being unserious. Like I don't know, again, they won the game. I don't want to go after them too hard, but at the same time, it's like when that happens, then you can't get mad at the deep bench group for also not playing serious basketball, even though all year they've been hemorrhaging points. I know Maxwell Lewis's net rating on the season has got to be like negative 5,000 based on, these stints and how much, like last night, people were like, well, why are LeBron and AD in? It's like, well, did you see what the deep bench did? And they gave up like 15 points immediately as soon as LeBron and AD checked out. That's why. And again, tonight they have to sub back in because Maxwell Lewis is a -8 in 1 minute.
What?
Do you know how bad your deep bench group has to play for that to happen? I'm not trying to just blame the second round rookie. Like that's a commentary on the entire group that was out there. He's just the only one that was out there for 1 minute of it. Him and Colin Castleton are both -8s in 1 minute tonight. Like that's just it's not acceptable. Like at some point, like the coaching staff you would think would have to take a stand and like, guys, you got to play at least some. Do you want minutes? Do you just know you're never going to play this year, and so you're not going to play serious basketball when you're out there? Like you have to. This is the NBA. You have to go out there and at least try and execute something.
So I'm looking. I've been while you've been talking, and that's an incredible stat, dude. That is unbelievable.
I immediately went to go look it up because I'm like, it's got to be terrible. It honestly, -8 is less than I expected. I didn't realize it would be in 1 minute though.
A -8 in 1 minute. Like those memes.
He gave up a full Reggie Miller.
Let so-and-so cook, right? Let so-and-so cook, and then this is the food, right? Like,
yeah.
Let Maxwell Lewis cook, and the kitchen just blew up. Like the kitchen.
It's like, how do you even give up 8 points in 1 minute? You know how hard, that's almost an achievement. Like, how do you even do that?
It is unbelievable what we watched there. But again,
and then the Lakers, you know what? I'm gonna call out our friend Coach Pete and the Lakers social media team posting that AD game sealing block. That's embarrassing. I'm sorry. I know you guys have a job to do. I'm not actually calling them out. Yeah. Like they have to post that because it was a good play or whatever. But it's like, guys, come on. It's like you tweeted it out. It's like, have some shame.
So this is
just tweet out the final score graphic. You didn't need to tweet out the AD game sealing block. Like in a vacuum, it was an impressive play. I don't want to see any clips from the final 5 minutes of that game ever again.
Any of the game, to be honest. Like I don't care. I don't care. Vince Carter could have come back out of retirement, to celebrate him making the Hall of Fame, had like a 360 windmill dunk, and I would not want to see that from that game ever again. But this is the tweet that I was looking for. It's from Dan Wojcicki of the LA Times, friend of the show, Dan Wojcicki. And he tweets out the following: Anthony Davis has just one field goal attempt in the paint in the second half.
He tweeted that with like a minute left to go in the third quarter.
Yeah, related, the Wizards are within 2. And then I guess as he was typing, Anthony Davis had I actually can recall the shot.
Yeah, me too.
LeBron fed him from like the high post, and he got a dunk. Yeah. While Wojcicki was,
because I was watching for this too. I'm like, there's has he even scored since the first quarter?
It was funny. You look at their roster, you look at Washington's roster, and you're like, okay, yeah, this should be a game that AD eats in, right? Like this should be a game that like AD should be, have his way. And then you watch the first quarter, you're like, yeah, that's following the script. Like that it seems to be consistent with expectations.
And even then, half of them were on Kobe assists. He was just like being a monster on the glass and getting putbacks.
Yeah, so while the Lakers were kind of playing with their food. And then this is another thing that they tend to do. And I promise we're going to get back to this being a successful road trip and kind of expectations here moving forward for the rest of
I
this
think it's
season.
indicative of, when I think a lot of times it's easy to criticize the coaching staff and, like for things that sometimes they have no control over, but
not
just
me.
sort of, yeah, the level, the whole game was sort of indicative of how often this team has been just like completely unserious, from the just forgetting about Anthony Davis for 2 quarters to, like the running out the shot clock to the deep bench, whatever. There's got to be some level of direction,
Well, no, I think it's even more macro. I think the reason that the Lakers effed around is as much as they did at the beginning of the year, and it took so long to finally start Rui, which, by the way, since they've started Rui, the Lakers have lost 8 games since the beginning of February. 8 games since the beginning of February. They're an entirely different team. Now that they're actually playing their best basketball players. It's the craziest freaking notion. Sorry, Avery, if you're still up. I know I'm not supposed to say freaking, but like
you guys aren't saying freaking around her.
It's been a struggle, and I will occasionally slip up.
I assume freaking was your alternative. I can't even imagine you getting by without any F words at all.
I have to No, Avery was about maybe she was like 6 months older than Miles is currently right now. She was like 2 and some change, and she was riding on one of those little kind of push scooter things, and she ran into a wall, and she runs into the wall, and it just happened to be really quiet in the house at that moment. Jen and I, just kind of wait. Like we hear the bump. We didn't know necessarily what happened. We hear a bump, and we're like, ugh. And all we hear from the corner of the house that Avery ran into the wall in is like, shit.
She really is your daughter. Did she then criticize the process of building the home that put the wall there?
It was, yeah. She was just like, this is a cultural
I'm all
problem.
about process.
But yeah, I was, I did have a typo in the good call, Danny from LA. There is a typo in the should be Lakers mess around, don't find out against Washington, because normally in that game, especially against a team that has talented scorers like Washington has, if you give them that kind of an opportunity at home, you wind up losing that game, and that would have been a brutal loss for the Lakers to take there. But anyway,
they almost deserved to lose at the end of that. Man, that was a moral defeat.
Once it was apparent that I was going to lose my bet, I was all the way salty. I was like, lose the whole damn thing.
I almost wanted them to lose just because of how funny it would have been if they had to answer questions about how did you guys blow a 14-point lead in 2 minutes?
In 2 minutes.
Does Maxwell Lewis get brought out to the podium at that point?
For the Wizards? They're like Wizards prop them up?
They are, Dan, answer for your crimes, Max.
But the point that you were making about this, there not being enough direction, right, with coaching and stuff like that, and that in and of itself is a cultural thing. But all year, I was calling this team entitled back in the second week of the season, because they just thought that hey, this is how we were able to play at a certain level and get all the way to the Western Conference Finals with this much margin for error. Let's go ahead and give ourselves even less margin for error on a nightly basis, because I just don't think the Lakers properly respect the NBA or the sport, right? It's just they
carry themselves as if they are not fighting to remain in the 9th seed.
Yeah.
Or move up and get to play in that first play-in game.
Yeah, but that's been the thing all year, and I think when we talk about why it took so long to get Rui Hachimura into the starting lineup, which again, since he has been starting, they have lost 8 games in the last 2 calendar months. Think about where they would be right now if they didn't mess around as much as they did in the beginning of the season. If they didn't give Taurean Prince, endless amounts of rope. If they didn't do the whole, if they didn't bench Austin and then bench D'Lo, Like I wrote today, piece should be dropping tomorrow, the day after, for Lakers Daily. I wrote about like the different sentiment in the locker room now after they started playing Rui Hachimura. And it like really struck me. It really dawned on me as I was writing about this. The Lakers at various points this season have benched 3 of their 5 starters. They're like they're going to go into the playoffs this year, and they'll be the team that, or the unit that is going to start playoff games for them. Darvin Ham has at different points in the season benched 3 of those 5 guys. there are more starters in that unit who have been benched than haven't. Like, you don't see that from very good teams.
Do you think they're going to get to the play-in and they're like, well, guys, at least the intra-squad scrimmage portion of the season is over, you know?
Right. Well,
thank God. Preseason gets longer every year, guys.
They've been waiting to play. Who is that like European team that the Lakers beat the crap out of that one year? They were terrible, right? Marcelo Huertas was on the team. They played like CSK Moscow. Was that it? Like, you know, and I think it was, no, because Moscow is normally a pretty good team, but like they played some kind of lower level European team that came over, and the Lakers absolutely trounced them. And it was like, man, can they play those guys every year? Because you knew going into that season the Lakers are going to be terrible. And it's like, these guys are just waiting to play that team again. And it's like, all right, when do we, like next week, right? We should be going over to China to play our preseason games over there too, right? It should be coming up.
I think some of this is sort of a natural, and this is not to criticize LeBron. Like I think some of this is though sort of a natural consequence of your best player and your alpha dog being 39 years old and not being able to commit to that stuff all the time. Like, I don't think that it should be like that. Those guys should have more pride than that. And they're all like, they are not 39. Anthony Davis is the second oldest player on the team at what, he's 30, right? 30, 31, you know, they should have more pride than that, and they should play harder than that. But I mean, we all know, you know, shoulds don't always happen. And so part of my year-long theory has been it's sort of a consequence of that. And it's sort of a consequence of, you know, I mean, Darvin's solution to everything seems to just be to like change the lineup wildly or tell them to try harder. And so you know, if you're not making that many schematic adjustments, it's sort of, you know, I don't know. I think it's a combination of a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like, if the only adjustment that you know is going to come from the coach, like I actually sensed some of this from LSU's team and their reaction to losing to Caitlin Clark, right? Did you watch that game?
Yeah.
And now how like Kim Mulkey,
I did not turn into Blazers magic. I will come out and admit that I was locked in on LSU Iowa that night.
It was a great game. But I was watching that game, and poor Haley Van Lith was out on an island while Caitlin Clark was just having one of the greatest basketball games you'll ever see in that sport.
It was like early season Torian Prince.
Yeah, and well, but exactly, like that's what I kept on
Everybody's
thinking,
like, oh man, like memeing her, and it's like, no, it's not her fault. She's like 3 inches shorter and can't guard her. You know, like, why is that the strategy?
Well, so like I sense
it would be like if the Lakers put in Maxwell Lewis for like longer than 1 minute at the end of games. You know, it's like, wait, that's not, you know,
they started
that's not his fault. The Lakers, you know, gave up 30 points during those 5 minutes.
Yeah. But like, you know, I was watching, you know, I was watching that game, and a lot of the looks, it also helped that LSU wears purple and gold too. But a lot of the looks that like Mulkey was getting from her players after these timeouts was way too like reminiscent of the looks that the Lakers were giving Darvin coming out of timeouts, where he would just tell them like, all right, run harder, try faster, grittier, right? And like the guys were the guys would come out of the timeout like, again, that's like the 57th straight same timeout that we have had. And you know, like you're talking about, if his only 2 moves basically all year have been wildly throw shit at the wall, damn it, sorry Avery, wildly throw stuff at the wall and hope something sticks, or tell the guys that are actually playing out there to play harder, yeah, like you are going to, you know, withstand some of these runs. While the Wizards were on a 15-0 run in that third quarter, the only timeout that the Lakers called was an unsuccessful challenge of the ball going off of Kyle Kuzma's thigh, which, by the way, still looked pretty obvious that it went off of his thigh. But anyway, let's dive into the super comments here because they're kind of pouring in. The first one means I get to play this bad boy. Justin Tyndall writes, in 2 years, has Ham learned anything regarding timeouts and lineups? Feel for this core from last year. We have a good coach. Great things could be achieved. With Ham, I have no expectations. And that's kind of the thing, right? Like when a team lacks culture, right? When a team lacks a kind of general tone that is being sent by its head coach or set by its head coach, it is completely reliant upon the stars. And normally stars set the tone anyway, but you want to have that like with some kind of some type of extra support from the head coach, right? Like, Kobe, if it was just Kobe setting the tone every game while Phil Jackson was his head coach, that team would have like worn itself out because Kobe was so maniacal that like he would have that same tone would have gotten really old.
Yeah.
And Phil Jackson has talked about how like
they got the exact perfect opposite personality wise to coach the team.
Right. But I also think though that like I think Phil was always very good at understanding which buttons to press. Actually, the time that I knew Phil Jackson was done with the Lakers was in that Dallas Mavericks series. Remember at the end of it, he kind of pushed Powell in the chest.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, he's lost him. He doesn't know how to get through to those guys anymore. And I think here with Ham, he has no kind of understanding. And this was supposed to be his strong suit, right? This is what he's supposed to bring to the table is his understanding and his ability to like, get through to people. He just doesn't really understand like, when to push which personal buttons. And in this one, man, when your team gives up a 13-point lead in 3 possessions, like that's the time to break a clipboard, right? We've seen Steve Kerr do it. We've seen Eric Spoelstra do it. We've seen Pop do it. We've seen Phil lose his frustrations as well. Phil used to ask to get thrown out of games if he saw that his team wasn't offering up the right amount of energy and stuff like that. Like, and no, I'm not expecting.
You raise a good point. Have we ever seen Darvin get mad enough to even remotely come close to an ejection?
He picks up one tee and he tends to kind of go back into his shell.
Yeah.
Look, in fairness to Darvin, he has great seats. I wouldn't want to give up those seats. Like personally, I would not want to.
Coach, Corey Kispert's going off. What should we do? Guys, I'm trying to watch the game here.
Who? Man, this white guy's really good. You guys watching this?
That TikToker can hoop.
The next one here is from Nathan Mark, and I'm sorry. I think I'm going to disappoint you here in this episode. Praying to hear Anthony say Darvin Ham is the GOAT. A GOAT. Like I would say he's.
I'm gonna cut just that part. I'm jumping into YouTube after this, downloading the episode as soon as you put it live. Out of context, Darvin Ham is the GOAT. Oh shit. All right, well, I fell into my own trap. You got me there.
we have another one here, which means where is it? Expressionless, passive coaches like Ham don't work. I'm a Mets and Jets fan. We always have this problem. Knicks fight every night because of Thibs. Well, this is the thing. You need a balance, right? Like, the Tibbs his teams always flame out in the playoffs because everybody ratchets up the energy one level and they can't. Like he pushes them too hard in the regular season. They don't know how to take that next step forward.
Yeah, and also, I mean, in the other positives, I mean, Tibbs might have actually killed Colin Castleton tonight. So, again, it's good that the Lakers aren't having to deal with that.
Doesn't Tibbs kind of look like the Penguin?
Yeah, you're not the first to make that comp. He definitely does.
I really need him to coach Andre Drummond so that he could be like, the Penguin where he had all of his different sized penguins in the.
It's like a big penguin themed henchman,
Yeah, right. He's like, but no, I think that the best coaches, and this is frankly true of parenting. This is kind of like how I try to parent. I'm a very high energy guy as it is, right? You guys tune into the show all the time. You guys see how I operate. My blood pressure is probably not particularly healthy at a very healthy level. But I do try to, like, with Avery, if I do get upset with her, I try to meet with that same energy on the positive side if she does something good, right? And
given your podcast style, I do not believe you, but I suppose the effort is worthwhile.
Look, there's a lot more writing on Avery than this podcast, so I take that a little more seriously. But no, I look at the way that, like, the best coaches are. Like, this used to drive me crazy watching Stan Van Gundy, because he's an example of somebody who's like way too negative all the time.
Yeah.
And I think he's a genius. I think he's a
I mean, you could see why players tuned him. I mean, they called him the master of panic.
Quick. Yeah, and it happened quick, right? It would take 1 or 2 seasons, and the guys would
lost the
start to tune
Pelicans
him
in
out.
one season.
Right. Yeah. And I think Darvin is kind of the opposite side of this thing, where he believes in his team and in his guys a little too much, right? He's a little too positive. And you need to find that balance where the guys need to understand that if they do something incorrectly, they're going to hear about it. And then if they do something well, they're going to also hear about it. And in this one, like, again, end of the day, it's 1 of 82. They won the game, then you move on or whatever. But
I am amazed that we've gotten 30 minutes of complaints out of this. I apologize to the listeners.
You know what? I did say in the last episode that I was feeling a little too good about this team, and something terrible needed to happen. Like, it was going to happen unless I found something to whine about. Finding 30 minutes of whining is actually, I think, a good thing for everybody.
And that terrible thing, only beating the Wizards by 5 points.
Exactly.
Can I just so NBA.com before we move on, I this was the story of the game to me. First quarter, you want to guess how many points AD had?
I know how many points he had.
Okay, so 19.
Yeah.
So how many points do you think he had in the second quarter, Anthony?
Did he score?
Yeah, he had 2 points on 3 shots.
And then
how many do you think he had in the third quarter? He played all 12 minutes. I mean, surely they'd get him the ball a couple times, right?
Did he score 2 again?
He touched the ball 4 times, got 6 points out of it, which is actually like a really good rate. He shot 2 for 4 from the field, you know? And then in the fourth quarter, 3 of 3 from the field, still only got 3 shots, but got 8 points out of it. It's just like, I don't understand how they go from, we're going to feed you the ball every single time down. The 7 shots don't even tell the whole story because of how often he was getting fouled that allowed him to go. Like, he went 11 for 11 from the free throw line in the first quarter. And then they were just like, yeah, no, that's cool. We don't need to keep getting him the ball. They're just, I mean, why would we want to foul the Wizards players out,
It's just,
that'd be too easy.
Again, like, I just think, there's an amount of respect that you have to have for the game, and I just don't think this team has it. And I think their attention waxes and wanes and stuff like that, and the person who that affects the most is Anthony Davis. Let's actually move on though, and try to be a little positive here really quickly. I didn't read this, Harrison, but I do have another super comment. So here we go with this. This might be late, but did you guys read the LA Times article on the LeBron rookie cards reinforces the idea that reality is stranger than fiction? I have no idea what that is talking about.
Yeah, neither do I. You want me to read it right now while you're talking?
On the air. I don't think there's any.
Just read it to everyone, story time.
Yeah. Behind a paywall and everything. No, I do know that there's a Netflix, there's a Netflix show about like collectibles and stuff like that. And I do remember there was an episode of it where they were trying to talk to the people who got like some LeBron rookie card, and they were going to try to auction it off, and then, they take a cut and all that stuff. And like that kind of that seedy underbelly of society, collectibles and all of that stuff is like, remember the NFT market? Remember how all of that was going? It's just all that market is, all of those things always comes across to me as, and this is, you're listening to somebody who collected baseball cards as a kid. I have a Kobe rookie card. That is one of my most prized possessions. I have some Griffey rookie cards and some other guys that I'm actually kind of proud of my old baseball card collection when I had to save up like 2 weeks chore money to go out and pay for a pack of baseball cards. But the older and older and older I got, the more you come to realize that it's all kind of a sham. But all right, so the road trip though that the Lakers just wrapped up, 5-1 on that road trip. Like I said earlier, they have only lost 8 games since Rui Hachimura has been inserted into the starting lineup. You always do got to be kind of nervous about March basketball because a lot of teams will have already kind of given up on the season, or even the good teams are kind of just trying to stay healthy and be ready for the playoffs and be healthy for the playoffs. So you have some of that going on. Hell, just look at every
You know what's
team that the
funny is
Lakers.
over the course, I felt like this was a mostly good road trip, and there was a point in the first quarter when I was about to tweet like, "Hey, Lakers are finally a serious team."
Yeah, well, because they were
I
down
did
by
not send
11
that,
in
thankfully.
the they were down by 11 in the first quarter, and they finished the quarter up like 10 or so,
Yeah,
9 or 10. So you had like a 20-point swing in that first quarter. And yeah, like I thought there, all right, Washington threw their one punch. They're probably going to get ready to lie down. And frankly, if you watch Washington play, it looked like they were ready to lie down. They just, the Lakers just kept like, here, let me give you a hand. Let's stand you up.
yeah.
Come on, oh buddy. Come on, Coos. Let's get on up. But no, the Lakers, had this very successful road trip. 5-1 as a road trip is always going to be good. I don't care what disclaimers you want to assign to it. Again, they're playing significantly better basketball with Rui in the starting lineup. And I've asked Aaron if this is an entirely different team, how we do the math on this. But what I will say though is this is where I'm like going to pay really close attention, because like this is where they can get a little greedy, right? Like you look at the rest of this season, you look at their schedule, you look at what they could possibly accomplish with what's left of the regular season. There is plenty of reason to go out there and kick a whole bunch of ass to wrap up the season and just see where you wind up. And even if you don't climb because Phoenix goes on a run of their own, or because Sacramento goes on a run of their own, even if you don't climb out of the 9 spot, at the very worst, you are entering the play-in tournament with real momentum, and you've hopefully figured some things out. But like, is there like, how confident are you in these guys getting that kind of greedy though? That's the part that I'm kind of hung up on.
I was more confident until the final 3 quarters tonight. But that said, you missed the most important stat in there. Lakers 3-0 since Gabe Vincent came back.
It's true. It's
I mean,
true.
he didn't play in one of those games, but still.
Gabe tonight played, let me see the number of minutes he played. He played 14 minutes. Again, it's how many he played in the first game that he was back. 0 of 1 from the field, 0 of 1 from 3-point range. Was a -6 on the night where the Lakers were blowing out the Wizards for most of the night. So I haven't seen enough. I haven't seen anywhere near enough from him where I want him in the playoff rotation.
Lisan Al Gabe is leading us to the promised land, Anthony. He is going to overthrow the NBA, the scourge of the NBA, trying to take from the Lakers, nectar of titles.
You're right. You're right. I don't know what Dune is. Like that is
Wait,
one.
you haven't seen either Dune?
Neither Dune.
Oh God, dude.
Yeah, neither Dune. All right. So I want to wrap on this though. Well, I have two things that I have to touch
All
on
right,
here
I'm gonna
before we
let you
get you out
cook
of here.
because actually somebody is at my door. So
Oh,
this is great timing.
all right, cool. All right. So I will go ahead and take him off of camera. So the next few games that the Lakers play, they play against Cleveland at home. They play against Minnesota at home. They play against Golden State at home. And then they wrap up with Memphis and New Orleans on the road. That is 5 games left of their season. Only one of those games is against a non-play-in or playoff team. And you would look at that and you would say that's kind of a tough stretch to finish your season. I'm still expecting 4-1. Like if you look at everything that the Lakers need to accomplish here to wrap up the season, 4-1 against a Cleveland team that has been kind of stuck in the mud the second half of the season, a Minnesota team that the Lakers have matched up pretty well against, Golden State, right, a worse team than them record-wise. Memphis is a bad team. And then New Orleans, another team that the Lakers have matched up well and played hard against New Orleans. Like you're looking at all of these things, and yeah, you have 2 games here where it is a let's see, early tips in Saturday's game, and then the final game of the season. You have 2 early tips there. But for the most part, you're looking at this stretch here against Cleveland, Minnesota, Golden State, Memphis, and New Orleans to wrap things up. And I still think that it's fair to ask these guys to go on, to finish on a 4-1 run. Like I don't think that's unrealistic to ask when you look at the situation that they're actually trying to play.
I think it's reasonable to ask them to go undefeated. Show us you're serious and you want to avoid, give yourself some margin for error. Give yourself that 7-8 play-in game,
Yeah. I mean, I think I think that would be fine in a vacuum, but I've also watched this team all year, so I'm kind of setting my expectations at a realistic spot.
I mean, again, we spent 30 minutes criticizing them after a win. I will say that they have looked like more of a serious team over the last month. And again, there's all the caveats that
absolutely.
You said about March basketball and, like how much can you really take from that? It's certainly less than earlier in the season. But that said, they have appeared to be doing the right things. And overall, I volunteered to stream with you tonight because I was like, I'm feeling good about the Lakers. This is going to be a fun show. I wasn't slated to come on this week. And then, and then this game happened and I'm like, you know what? I'm still annoyed enough that I have takes that I want to fire off.
We're getting old. Like the thing that fires us up is them annoying us. Yeah.
No, I was fired up to talk about how good I was feeling about this team in recent weeks and days. And yeah, they, overall, I still am, especially considering that tonight was the second night of a back-to-back. And, there was some kind of wonky stuff going on as far as like, they just didn't appear to be all that locked in. And I mean, who could blame them? They were playing the Wizards, but, and they got the win. So ultimately that's
I can blame them, Harrison. I can blame them. They took donuts out of my daughter's life. Like, it's not going to.
That's not true. You said you were going to buy them anyway. You did. They did not.
I'm still going to buy them. We do have 2 more super comments here to go. First one from God King Tony Clifton, who writes, "I want to believe we can make it to 6th. I view making the play-in as a failure of a season. It's the consolation prize for try-hard lottery teams." I certainly agree about the sentiment about.
I love that comment.
Yeah. Like I look, when you consider what the expectations were heading into the season, merely making it into the play-in is a failure, right? Like I considered the Lakers coming into the season as like the second best team in the West. I truly believe
LeBron next year, if Silver told him that, provided he's back with the Lakers and all that stuff, whatever. Silver told him, he's like, LeBron, we're going to have to name something after you one day now that we've done all these trophies. What do you think of the LeBron James play-in tournament title? Because if you're in there again, that's what we're going to name it. That's what David Stern would have done.
No, it should be like the LeBron versus Steph play-in final. But it's always those two guys. It would be very funny if after like 4 finals in a row facing each other, that was how they were memorialized. The LeBron Steph Bowl and the play-in. It's what those 2 organizations deserve, right? Like the Lakers have kind of messed around with the LeBron James era, and the Warriors with their whole stupid 2 timelines thing. Like that would be a proper way to commemorate those 2 organizations fumbling the bag.
Do you feel bad for calling Genie broke, seeing how it's gone for the Warriors after they and Clippers, frankly, recently in recent months, since they started spending like the highest payroll in the league?
No, I do not.
Just getting more bang for a buck, Anthony. Don't you care about that?
I am very much a bargain shopper. I cannot. It's hard for me to avoid a good sale, but no, no. I want my Lakers to spend like the Dodgers do. All right, the last one that I have to get to here, just making sure I didn't miss any here. Cool.
Oh no, as Tony points out in a non-super comment, Saturday is a 12:30 game. So
Yeah,
never mind. Chalk that up as a loss. I don't.
Yeah, they don't tend to handle those games very well. That Lobos just kicks in a certain way. The last super comment that we have comes from I'm afraid. I'm nervous to try this. Saud, I think I have that right. Saud saying, "Saw your tweet. Congrats on your growth. I do want to say, and this was the last bullet point that we have here. I tweeted out earlier today that with the show, with the work that I'm doing in producing some shows for Odyssey, with my writing, with YouTube, and with everything that I'm kind of piecemealing together right now." I conservatively can kind of budget myself to make almost exact. It's kind of eerie, almost exactly the salary that I was making at Vox at the time that they laid me off. And you guys know this. I try to thank you guys at every turn when we do hit these kind of benchmarks, and I 1 zillion% am genuine when I say you guys have put Harrison and me in spots that we never honestly believed we would be in this industry, where he and I can just get together here and laugh for 45 minutes and turn that into a viable career. Now, this is the third different time you've turned it into a viable career. Locked On Lakers went from zero. It was a concept on the back of a napkin, and it became enough that Harrison was able to leave that and go to a full-time job of his own, and I was able to build that up, and we were able to build that up in a really cool way there. And then when I went to Vox, you guys followed me to Vox, and we were able to take a podcast at that time that I think it had done in the year before I took over about 700,000 downloads in the calendar year or so. And in the first year, we were able to turn it into a 2 million download episode. And here again, I get laid off, and we have to build this thing from nothing while the airplane is in the air. And again, you guys step up and believe in us in really cool ways. And I want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for the amount of support that you guys have shown us. Jen just walked into the room a second ago. It's too bad that she walked away right before I was about to thank her. I guess I can skip that part. I want to thank Harrison. It's actually really cool that you're on the show with us, because you have been incredibly supportive and super helpful. Raj has been incredible. Aaron is to this day just a truly unique human being that I just don't think people can fully grasp how great he's been. Sabrina, who is covering an entirely different gender of the sport, like a completely different universe, is the first day I texted her, I was like, hey, I'm launching a Slack for the Lakers Lounge just to see if people want to pop in and into and out of the show. She said, absolutely, send me that invitation. Nobody likes Slack invitations. Nobody. And
it's not true. I love them. I love being organized.
But as I'm talking right now, we have 1,000 people tuning in after a really annoying Lakers win against the Washington
There are
Wizards.
1,000 people tuned in for the. Oh no!
Right now.
I did not realize
people.
my angry rant was going out to that many people.
And when you were ranting, I guess we were only at about like 650 or 700 or so. But
once I stopped talking, though, it just to the moon.
The number of people who have just William Eniver from Odyssey. It didn't necessarily work out with Blue Wire. I have no hard feelings against them. The way that Kevin reached out to me immediately from Blue Wire to say, hey, whatever you need, let's work this thing out. there are so many people in this industry who it's really easy for anybody to kind of latch onto the negative experiences that you have. But when you really kind of sit down and you think about it, as I have basically all day today, I have so many people to thank. And honestly, it all starts with you, the listener, the viewer, the reader, the follower. I cannot thank you guys enough for what you have done for me and my family. And it's why I take this shit so seriously. I want the Lakers to be good for you people. My favorite all-time iTunes review was somebody who his father had a heart attack. I read this on the
Oh, I
at the
remember this
time.
one. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was saying how him and his father would watch Lakers games together, and they would always talk about the Lakers and the way that while his father was recovering from this heart attack, that he was able to maintain an aspect of that part of his life. He played our old Locked On Lakers shows for his father, and when I got that, I'm as it is. I'm pretty laid back in general when it comes to my career. But when I
Oh,
truly
okay.
am.
I thought no. You added career. I was like laid back.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, I guess that's true. I do burn the midnight oil, but like I when I got that comment, it really hammered home how much this stuff matters to people, how much sports matters to people. It is this really special universe that we get to kind of traverse through, and you guys have been incredible. So this was a cool kind of mile marker for us. We have 1,000 miles ahead of us in the future. There are such cool things that now that I've hit this benchmark, we're going to be able to do here for the show. And I can't wait for those of you who have been with us for this ride to this point to see where you guys are allowing the show to go from here forward. So thank you to everybody for all of that. And on
and
that
if I could just
awkward
jump
note,
in for a second
yeah.
before you wrap up the show, I just want to say you're welcome.
Thank you, Harrison.
No,
Thank you.
on behalf of, I feel like I got thanked twice there as someone who also listens to many of the episodes when I'm not on, not every episode, but most of them.
Yeah.
I on behalf of the listener, on behalf of myself, I feel confident speaking for Raj and Aaron and Sabrina and everyone else that you thanked in saying that it is just an honor to contribute to Anthony's Sweatshop.
I'm literally sweating while we were talking. Thank you again, everybody, for the support. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. And hell, we're going to be right back here tomorrow with Aaron and myself to wrap up this road trip. Look ahead.
You got to ask Aaron if he thinks that he could have done better than a -8 in 1 minute.
And -8 in 1 minute's insane. That is just
astounding.
Absolutely incredible. -8 in 1 minute is just, that is, remember when we, I'm not gonna throw this person under the bus. That is gonna do it here for this episode. But for Lakers outsiders, we hired a certain somebody, and he immediately came in and like absolutely tanked and threw off all of our numbers. I'm not going to name the person, but like that was the Maxwell Lewis experience tonight. Was this guy just?
Oh, come on, Max doesn't deserve. It's not his fault. He can't. It's not all his fault. It was a 5-man achievement to achieve a -8 in 1 minute.
Christie played poorly in that stretch too. He was clearly hunting his shots, and it did really.
He does every single time with that group. It's like they tell him, they're like, "All right, now's your chance to go cook," and it just has not gone well.
He's just a terrible chef. All right. Yeah. Thank you, Harrison, for popping in here. Thank you, everybody, for listening and watching the way that you have. Please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and until the next time you guys hear from us, I'm Anthony Irwin. That was Harrison Fagan, and this has been the Lakers Lounge.